This video is all about the 8 ewes that we selected to do AI on in the fall. So what happened was we purchased semen that had been harvested from rams in the UK and then imported here to the States. And the reason we did that was we're looking to increase our genetic diversity in our flock, but also want to keep the soft, fine, crimpy wool. And the breeders that we source the genetic material from are also breeding for soft, fine, crimpy fleeces. So in this video, I'm going to do a real deep dive on those 8 ewes we selected. I'm going to talk about the criteria that we used to select the ewes, and then why these 8 ewes fit that specification, as well as additional information about them, just why we like them, what traits they exhibit that make them really special. I'm Jennifer Johnson. My husband and I raise a beautiful flock of soft Shetland sheep right here on the farm in Western New York. And this channel is going to have videos all about raising sheep for their wool. So you'll find videos about lambs, about me spinning their wool into yarn, and just farm living in general. This video is part of a playlist on the channel. And in that playlist, there are a bunch of videos all about this process that we've been going through. So there's a video where I interview the US breeders who had the inspiration to go out and do this process. There's a video in this channel about the farmers who own and raised the rams that we used for the artificially inseminating our ewes. A video about preparing our ewes for the actual event. And I have a video of the event and talking a little bit about how it works and why to use artificial insemination. So lots of information if you're interested in this topic. I really tried to cover as much as I could. So we inseminated our ewes in the fall. It was Thanksgiving weekend. So our expectation is we're going to start having lambs on April 21st. And because they all got impregnated at the same time, we're going to have lambs like all at once in a big slam. So it's pretty exciting. So as we're talking about each ewe in this video, we're going to be referring to data sources. And I've compiled them all in this black binder, so if you hear us turning pages or whatever, it's all the information that we have about each of the ewes. And that would include their pedigree, which means, 5 generations back, who their parents and grandparents are. Their progeny, which is the lambs that they've produced. You can get a good sense of the quality of a ewe looking at her output. So we're also going to be looking at scientific data that's been collected about their fleeces. And we're also going to look at their wool because there's, it's not all about the numbers, right? It's about what it looks like and what it feels like. So we're going to include that in this conversation and just really go into a lot of detail about those 8 ewes, what makes them special, and why they were selected for the artificial insemination this year. Okay, let's get started. Criteria that we used to select the ewes that we wanted to do the AI with was that they had already had lambs before, that they were less than 10 years old, that they weren't on our for sale list, they were in good condition, and they matched the color of the ram that we were breeding them to. So we had to be pretty picky because we were only doing 8 ewes. So why was it important that they had lambs before in order to select them for AI?
Statistically speaking, you got a better chance of getting a successful outcome because you know that they've had lambs, they should be able to have lambs. Of course, that's not foolproof. And also, infertility is very rare in Shetlands. It doesn't happen very often. So that's really not all that important. But I think, in my opinion, the first lambing is always the toughest. I don't think it's my opinion. I think that's a fact. The first lambing is always tougher on a first-time mother. So I think having gone through it one time is useful. And I also think when you're doing the procedure, and I didn't actually talk to the vet about that, but I think when you're doing the procedure, I think it's easier if they've already been through the process one time.
So lots of good reasons for that one. The fact that they were less than 10 years old. Now, some people breed ewes that are more than 10 years old.
Well, that's just our criteria for breeding. Once they get to be a certain age, at 10, it's pretty old. I think it's best practice not to breed them anymore because lambing is trying on a ewe. And the older they get, the worse it gets. Obviously, just like people. So 10 is just kind of our artificial cutoff. You certainly could breed them after 10. It'd probably work out fine, but it's really tough on the ewe. So AI is no different. We don't really want them lambing if they're past a certain age, and 10 is what we use.
So, I mean, we're starting out here, we've got 70 ewes in the flock.
There are actually 74 ewes in the flock.
So we've cut off quite a few with the criteria that they had to have had lambs, and we're cutting off a couple from the top, like English Garden, because of the age. The condition criteria, I mean, that's pretty straightforward, right? We didn't really have any ewes that were, well, we did have a couple ewes that were a little bit thin going into breeding, so we ruled them out.
Yeah, you'd like the body condition to be at a high enough level that they can carry lambs without impacting their own health, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously they're fighting for calories all winter, and if they're pregnant, that's taking calories away from them. They're burning more calories. It just requires more. And so you're just heading into it, and you're probably not going to get a great outcome if the body condition isn't very good going into breeding.
Right. And then the color selection, so the rams we used, one was white, one was a gray catmugget, so he was black based, and one was a fawn catmugget, so he was brown based. We're raising sheep for their wool to sell fleeces, and so we wanted to make sure that we could predict the outcome of the color. We don't have a lot of white sheep, so using Oberon, we used 3 white ewes and specifically selected those because of their color as well as all the other criteria. And then we had 2 fawn ewes because there was a fawn ram. And then we used 3 black ewes for the gray catmugget.
The 2 ewes.
Yeah.
So I think you could do anything you want color-wise. We haven't typically focused on that in our breeding program that much. The last few years we've been going more for the blacks. Prior to that we were struggling to get white, so we were trying to get more of that. So breeding to the same color ram, the ewe and the ram to be the same color is not required, but we want to increase our chances of getting like a double patterned gray or a double patterned white. So you breed white to white. The lamb could carry a gene from a parent that's white, gene from the mother, gene from the father, and then it's a double white, in other words. So all of its lambs would be white.
So you can better predict what you're going to get, right? You have better control over your outcomes.
Yeah, so
Color-wise.
ideally we'd like to have, a ram that was white, double black, or double gray.
So it's one of the hopes that we
Right.
get. Yeah.
That's what you'd want, because then all of its offspring, whoever you breed it to, is going to have that color of a lamb.
Right.
So that's what we'd like to do. Or we've never done it though. I don't think we've ever had a double patterned anything where that's all they have is that pattern, whether it's a gray or a white or well, black's not a
Well,
pattern.
that's something to look into, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think we ever had that.
All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the footage of the 8 ewes that I was able to capture this fall out on the pasture and talk about each one in turn. So this first one we're looking at is Alice Paul. She's, like I said in the caption there, she's a spotted fawn catmugget, 2 years old. That ewe that just walked away was
Great
her lamb.
footage.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Alice Paul is I liked her from a lamb. She was, I think, our first lamb out of Nightly. We had Nightly. It was a fawn catmugget ram. We didn't use him for years, and I really liked him though. Conformationally, his fleece was nice, longer, very fine, dense, and he came from a bloodline that had more of a stocky conformation, and stocky not being a negative thing, but more closer to what the Shetland should be, a little more frame on them. Mm-hmm. So she had that when Alice Paul was born. She kind of inherited that.
So this is her with her mother. She was a single. This is Gilly as her mom.
Yeah, no, Gilly does not have that. Gilly is more of a refined ewe, a little bit fine-boned, I guess, a little narrow in the front and back. And this lamb was a definite improvement, so that's what we wanted with Nightly. But unfortunately, you've also got a lamb that's, a fawn catmugget, right?
Yeah. I mean,
because you brought a fawn catmugget to a fawn, and then that's what you get.
And the only
Now
reason,
she might be a double. She's not a double pattern. Didn't she have a black lamb?
She had a black lamb, yeah.
So she's not double patterned, even though you'd think she could be, because her parents were, both the same thing, fawns. But she's not. So that's one pattern I wouldn't want a double patterned fawn cat mulget. I wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
And I think we may have had that the more I'm thinking about it in the past.
So her grandsire was Nitro, so that's where the...
Yeah, no, that's a really nice lamb. That was one of our nicer lambs last year.
Yeah, she's beautiful. So Gilly's fleece.
I think you meant to say Alice Paul.
So Gilly was a sheared ewe. Both years I sheared her fleece because she happened to hit the rise right at shearing, and her wool is spectacular. I've sold both fleeces in our fleece auction. Her first year's fleece, her micron or spinning fineness was 18.8, and then last year 20.1. So it went up a little bit, but I think most of our flock went up. Can't remember.
Yeah.
But it's a nice fleece. I mean,
You tend to see that. I mean, they all go up or they all go down together. It's nutritional.
But I think it's like this typifies what we're breeding for, right? That really, really nice.
Well, that was the other thing is she has a longer fleece than her mother, Gilly. And that's why we bred her to Nightly, because we thought he had a longer fleece. And he had a really nice fleece. He had good length, good density, crimp, the whole thing. And he was fine, super fine. So we were trying to get kind of the miracle ewe out of that breeding. And once in a while you get lucky and it happens.
I couldn't have been more pleased with this lamb, because we were looking for black. It was like a surprise to get a pretty black out of...
Who was the father of this one? This one was out of...
Oh, hang on a second.
So
Loki.
Loki, okay.
Yeah.
So Loki also, for one of our better blacks, he's dense, for one thing, super fine. He has really nice crimp. He's not as long, fleece-wise, he's not as long stapled as Nightly was. But we tried to breed him to some ewes that have longer fleeces and try and kind of get that magical combination, which doesn't happen that often. But.
So hopefully we'll get twins out of Alice Paul. So she was bred with the fawn catmugget ram. So we will be excited to see what we get out of that. Okay, so the next ewe in our lineup
is Audi.
Yeah. So Audi's a black ewe, 2018. She's got a little bit more years behind her. Lots more lambs than...
How long do you have to sit out there to get these shots? Because these are really good.
I just love her. She's got this really cool... She's got like a lot of wool on the poll. That's how I distinguish her from the other two blacks.
Now she's out of Itasca.
She's out of Itasca.
Yeah.
I love Itasca. She's out of Itasca and Nitro.
So again, Nitro had similar qualities as Nightly had. Actually, Nitro might have been even a little nicer, I think.
Perfect tail there.
So there was nothing wrong with Itasca, but breeding those two together, we thought we would get some good combinations of stuff. Conformation was already pretty good on both of them, or very good on both of them. And then we're just working on fleece.
And her micron has been consistently in the low 20s. So last year as a 4-year-old, she was a spinning fineness of 21.9. Which is pretty...
So we've talked about this before. We tend to report spinning fineness, or SF, as it's also called. And it just makes it easier. That's not obviously the only thing we look at, but it's easier just to communicate one number.
There she is when she was a lamb with her mom.
The average was 22.1 last year, and coefficient of variation was 23.3, which is kind of high for us, but not surprising because her mother Itasca had a higher coefficient of variation too, which just basically means it's a little more variable of the fleece. So you can usually track that down to the CEM number, and I don't really want to get into all the stats, but a higher number tends to lead to a higher CEM, course edge mean, leads to a higher standard deviation, there's a correlation there is what I'm trying to say, a coefficient of variation. So like I said, we tend to report the SF just because it's easier for people to grasp, I think. But that's not, I don't mean to say that's all you should look at, anything like that. It's just one number is often easier to understand than 12.
Yeah. So this is just what I do every year. I make these cards up for the ewe. That's her fleece from last year. So I did rue her last year. Now I'm remembering that.
It's a pretty big fleece.
It is a big fleece.
It said 31.
Her fleece weighed 53, which is one of the heavier ones. And then after I skirted it, well, I only rooed off the stuff I could use. That's one of her lambs. That's Josephine. We don't have that lamb any longer.
So we have, yeah. So it's a pretty good sized fleece. 50. I mean, that's unskirted. 53, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's over 3 pounds.
So she's had lambs 3 years in a row. The year we're looking at here is where she had 2 ewes, a Morat and a black. And I've moved both of those ewes onto other farms. And then in 2021, she had a ram, a single with Knightley, Sebastian. We still have him. And then last year she gave us their Sebastian.
So that's Sebastian right there.
Yeah.
The lamb you were just talking about. He was also a really nice lamb. But again, with him, you saw the double coating, the higher CEM, the higher coefficient of variation. And that's from that bloodline. You're going to get more of that. And it's not even to say that's a bad thing, but it's different than our other sheep. But conformationally, he was really good. So you start to see that coming out more consistently. And we did end up using him too on some ewes.
Yep, we did.
So that's kind of the quality we're looking for with the AI.
So we're breeding for polled rams, and you guys can see he's got, those are called skurs. Those aren't full horns. But that comes out of Itasca too, right?
It does. She carries 1 gene for horn and 1 pole.
So this is last year, and you can see how I root her, and still had the britch and the neck left to go because I wanted to get the main part off for sale. But this black ewe we still have, so this one will be interesting to watch. We just did the micron data to see if that variation gets minimized, right? Because that was a Loki. That's a Loki lamb there.
Right, and it's a different fleece type than, say, Sebastian. You can tell by looking at it that it's different character. So I would expect her to have a lower coefficient of variation, lower CEM. So we'll see. And like you said, coming from Loki, that's what you would want. You would expect that.
So that's going to be a really nice fleece. I'm really looking forward to that one. That ewe has a name, but I can't remember what it is, that lamb.
Her name is Electra.
All right, so the next ewe is
Alera. So Alera is
ticks all the boxes.
OK Acres lamb.
Yep.
That we got as a lamb, I think, didn't we?
Yep.
Because that back then, again, we were trying to get white, and it was hard to find a fine fleece white. We had Rewick from Garrett Ramsey, and then we have Alera that we got after that, I think.
Yep,
Didn't we?
we got her, she was born in 2016. The only thing I have here is the record that in 2018, she gave us our first lamb. But we've got Lucretia is out of her, and Lucretia is another ewe that we used in this AI process. And then she had a couple twin rams last year. This year we've got a white ewe still, and that might actually be her ewe
Probably.
in the background there.
So she's very nice, a little framier than some of our other ewes. That's why we picked her, I think. We didn't just pick her because she's white. She had other qualities that we liked. We tended to like her offspring, and we thought from an AI perspective, we might get a good outcome with her.
Yeah.
The only worry with her is she had that issue with calcium last year, milk fever. So we had to treat her for that, and we'll have to keep an eye on that this year too. I'll probably treat her when she lambs.
And she's got a really nice fleece. She's always in the very low 20s. So last year, this is remarkable, as a 6-year-old, she had a spinning fineness. Let me see if I can get the sheet on there. It was 21.1. as a 6-year-old. So that's a testament to Kelly's breeding. I mean, she's done a nice job.
So her average is 21.7, spinning fineness of 21.1. So with our ewes, we always like the spinning fineness to be lower than the average. It's just a measure of uniformity and less double coating, more consistent fiber. So that's why we look at it that way. But yeah, that's pretty remarkable for a ewe of that age. And it's been like that pretty consistently over the years.
When you look at this, I mean, her head is a lot more solid, I feel like. You know, she's not a delicate ewe, is she?
No, that's one of the reasons I think we wanted to do AI with her, because the UK stock tends to be a little more framey, I guess, for lack of a better word, than maybe what we have on our farm. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to get more towards what the UK has. I think our sheep are probably finer than what they have there, but conformationally, I think they certainly have an edge on us.
Those are nice sized lambs for twins.
A lot of legs on those lambs. I don't know why that was.
Yeah.
Very leggy.
So this was after she had the treat. She was treated, and they bounced right back. Thank goodness. Yeah, so she was bred with, or the semen that we gave her was from Oberon, who was the white ram. So this will be where we're hoping to get a white patterned ram. It's going to be a different kind of year this year because we really are hoping to get rams, right? More than we usually would.
So usually when you're picking rams for breeding, you're trying to match up the conformational, the strengths and the weaknesses. You don't want to give breed a ewe to a ram that has the same weakness that she has. So you want to reinforce strengths wherever possible, or breed a ewe with a certain flaw, like say fleece length or fleece fineness, conformation. You want to breed her to a ram that has something superior that way. So we didn't really have to match up anything this year because they're all AI rams, and they're all of known quality, and they all passed the Shetland Sheep Society inspection. So you know they're top quality. You don't really have to worry about that. That's why we focused more on the color, which normally we don't do, because we had the luxury to do that this year. Usually there's some in us, so genetically, whether they're related or not, that's always a problem for us when we're matching up, setting up breeding groups, and we didn't have to worry about that with AI. We just, because they're not related
It
in
was
any
so
way.
liberating, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You
just
spent
say,
a lot of
okay,
time on that.
we're going to really focus on just what colors do we want to get here.
Yeah.
So that was kind of nice.
All right, so the next ewe is Lokola, who is a ewe we brought in. She was born in 2019, and I'm showing here that we had our first fleece record of 2020. So she's been on our farm for 3 years at least. This is when she first came in.
She came from OK Acres also.
Came from OK Acres.
Again, there was an opportunity to bring in a fine fleece black, and by at that point in our breeding program, we had quite a few blacks, but you know, if you get a good one, and we felt like conformationally she was good, you know, take advantage of it when you can.
Mm-hmm. So that's her sheared fleece. I didn't rue her. She didn't seem to rue really well, but she had a nice fleece. It's not one of our best fleeces.
Yeah, so Lokola's spinning fineness was 23.9, a little higher than I think all the other ewes that we use for AI.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
a little high for us, but she has a good fleece though. I mean, it's dense.
Yep. Look at Paulina's. That's her lamb from last year.
But again, we picked her to AI because we thought she was had a little more frame, and we're trying to get more of that. Wider legs. When I say frame, I'm saying wider bones.
This is that ram that you love, that big black ram that we still have.
Yeah, that ram was, I don't know, we haven't sent his fleece in. He may not be all that fine, but conformationally he's one of the better ones we've had.
Yeah.
He was really stocky, and not in a bad way. He was stocky, just wide hips, the
Yep.
whole thing, wide legs,
One of the bigger ones as well, bigger size.
full chest, the whole thing. So I liked him.
So Lokola, she's the black one that has more of a cleaner pull, which is how I distinguish her from the other two. And I hate to say it, she's a little bit mean. When she's with the other sheep, she can be a little, not mean, but like very territorial. She doesn't
Yeah,
like to eat with other sheep, and
Not sure why that is.
I know. All right, so the next ewe is Ophavia, named after the NPR commentator. It's kind of a weird name, but I dig it. She's white. This is her data. She's out of Rewick that you were talking about that we brought in from Garrett.
Yeah.
And she's the mother of Harry and Belva, two white sheep that are in our flock now. Harry we've used a couple years. White.
Now she is a different. I mean, when you look at her build, it's totally different than Alera's, right?
What do you mean? Like
She's one of our smaller ewes.
she is small.
She's not doesn't have that big frame. I think as an AI candidate, you might say that she's maybe not the right fit because she doesn't have the frame.
But she's had twins the last 2 years.
Yeah, so that's another thing you would want is a ewe that can have twins, and we didn't really necessarily restrict our AI program to that. Disqualify any ewes that don't have twins because there's a lot of things that go into that. You'd like that. You'd like them to have twins. But look at the difference in the size of those two lambs. Mm-hmm. It's like one has to get put back in the oven to keep growing or something because it's.
Yeah, there she is when she was a yearling. She was a little peanut.
So.
And here she is with her two lambs.
But she is out of UK stock.
Yep.
Out of Garrett's AI program that he was doing for a while.
Nice fleece. I sold her fleece in the auction.
So that was kind of the selection criteria for her, was that she had some AI in her background, and or UK percentage, if you want to look at it that way.
Her numbers are good as well. Low 20s, spinning fineness. From last year. So she always gives us a nice fleece.
Yeah, we could go on all day about what we like, and I mean, we like kind of what we've been breeding for is to try and get ewes that hold their micron year to year. And if you look at 3, 4, 5 years, you can say, oh, it's all pretty consistent. Usually they'll go up, 10% a year up to a certain point. The fineness in them is what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And some of these ewes are steady from year to year.
Yep, like Yuki, for example. So Yuki is probably one of my favorite ewes to look at out there in the pasture. She's a fawn cat mugget. She was acting really weird this day. I don't know why, but I just think she's gorgeous.
I don't really pay that much attention to the fawn cat muggets because we've had so many of them for a long time.
Yeah.
But her fleece was one of the better ones
Yeah.
out there.
So she's out of Genoa and Nitro, I mean, and so Genoa is a AI offspring with Siobhan. Do you remember that?
Yeah, Shaban was an F1 Orion, a UK out of AI that we did.
Her fleece, so I brewed her and I got a great yield on her fleece. It was like 60% of the fiber was under the coat compared with the britch and the neck, so I was really happy with that. And she's given us great lambs. She's given us Duncan. This is her ram, and we've used
Now
him.
that one's really nice. That's one of the better rams we've had.
Yeah, he's super.
It's very fine and crimpy.
And this is her ewe. So we just did micron on the ewe lambs from this year, and this ewe is really
I
striking.
don't remember much about her, this lamb.
She's one of the bigger ones out there, and the markings on her face have kind of faded, so she just looks really.
Was she that gray one that I liked? What color is she?
Yeah, she's gray.
When we did the samples, one of them I really liked.
She's eating her
I think
ear.
it was her.
spinning finest last year of 22. She started out at 19.3.
Sometimes the fawns look gray
Yeah.
and vice versa as lambs.
No, this is a gray ewe. I really love her. So this will be good. And she was bred with the fawn catmugget ram straws. So
Yeah, which seems odd that we would do fawn on fawn, given that we were overtaken with fawns for a while. There's no reason for us to breed fawn to fawn, but we wanted to get some of each ram, so we got some of the fawn, and we
So,
didn't want to
yeah.
breed the fawn to a black.
right.
We wanted to breed, so we just bred fawn to fawn.
So the thing is, there's nothing wrong with fawn fleeces, but I think we've suffered from a little PTSD because we had so much fawn in our flock, and I can't remember why. I think there were a few rams you were just really
Well, we
taken
were
with,
using Canterbury every year.
and you loved him, and his lambs were beautiful, but it was always fawn. So
Well,
we
he
started-
was, I don't know, that's back when we were focused a lot on fineness. He wasn't a great ram, but he was polled, and he was very fine. It was in the 18, I mean, in terms of his SF, I don't have that in front of me, but it was below 18, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, in hindsight, that was probably, you know, if you want to say you can get too fine, it probably was because it was shorter. But it was really crimpy and very soft and the whole thing.
And they were rams were hard to find like that back then. There wasn't as much, I don't even think we had the,
In fact, Knightley is out of him, now that I think about
yeah.
it. And Knightley has much better, he's a much better ram than Canterbury was. But at that point we said, well, we've been using, you know, Canterbury for so long, we've got so many fawn sheep, we can't use Knightley, so we didn't breed with him for a long time,
Right.
which I wish we had in hindsight.
I know it. And I think we've let a lot of brown-based sheep that were spectacular go
Just because
other
we had too many.
because of the color concentration. So that's kind of our bias right now. There's nothing wrong with fawn fleeces. They're lovely, but anyway. All right, so the next ewe we're going to talk about is Sarin, who was another import from Kelly's farm, OK Acres.
Yeah, and she was one that we got in Jefferson that Kelly had for sale. I really wasn't looking to buy that year. But we didn't have a lot of blacks. We had a lot of fawns. So we said, oh, there's one's for sale. I don't particularly like her fleece. At that time, I didn't, as a lamb. But I thought she was fine enough, and she looked good in every other way. And she was a good buy for us because she's... her fleece has been her lamb fleece wasn't as good as the rest of her fleeces, in my opinion.
That's actually
That's
funny
not-
you say that, because in 2018 she came to us, we had 22.2 was her spinning fineness, and last year her fleece was 19.9, so it actually got...
But it's one of the few ones where the character completely changed. It was more of a dreadlocky fleece as a lamb, and it wasn't like that ever again. But she's conformationally is really good. It's always a spaz.
She's very high-spirited, is what I like to say. Those are my words for...
Oh, yours is nicer than mine.
Yeah. And she's the black ewe with the little white spot on her top of her head. So that's how I always recognize her. She's the one, yeah. But she's great looking, though, isn't she?
She's a bit of a Nazi. With her high Hitler thing that
I
she
know.
does.
That's her lamb behind her. That's Elizabeth. She's given us some spectacular lambs. Sigrun is one that I've sold, but she's close by, so I still get Sigrun's fleece. Sigrun was black. And then Elizabeth is her lamb. And Elizabeth has had, see, she's just a weirdo.
Now, she looks a little britchy there.
She is
But
a little britchy, I think.
How old is she now? 6?
6.
Yeah, she's not really old or anything like that.
She's more britchy than a lot of the other sheep that we have.
Again, that sort of changed. And we see that quite a bit. The older they get, sometimes the
Yeah.
britchier some of them do, and some of them don't get like that at all.
But it tells you how far we've come in 6 years. Like, none of our stuff is britchy. None of our lambs are britchy. So that's her fleece. It's not as, I don't know how you call this. I think it's like organized, where it's all stuck together. But that's some bats that I made out of her.
The
Spins up
Shetland black
gorgeous.
that I remember getting in the disagreement with people whether it's black or brown when
doesn't
the
matter.
yarn's made,
You're
because
gonna spin it.
technically it's brown, the color, but it's not genetically black.
Yeah.
So she's stomping there. Just something she always did with her lambs.
It's so funny.
Just stomps her foot.
Doesn't want you too close to him.
I missed that last year because she didn't have a lamb. But
Yeah. So.
she probably needed a break. That's one of her, that Sigrun that you were talking about.
This is Elizabeth. She's really good. And this is Hero. This is a fawn ewe. She's a yearling. She's super. Oh, I just love this girl. Let me see. She's a fawn cat mugget. And I found this in her file because I lost the sample. The cat's got at it.
She's
Look
a
at
fawn?
that. Yeah, look at that.
See, that's
crimp.
what I mean. She looks great.
Look at her crimping. The density of this, it's just like butter.
She's fawn and she looks very gray.
Yep. I really would like to breed some of these yearlings. Maybe next year. We just have too many out there right now. Hero is out of Nightly. This one here that we're looking at.
He was out of Nightly, huh?
This ewe is a girl, actually. It's a female. Okay, I do
But
have...
she's out of Nightly.
Yep. Enjoy her poopies there. The sample fell off because the cat's got at it. But yeah, 18 micron spinning fineness. Look at that.
So she's 2 this year,
Right.
that lamb.
She's
Well,
really...
I'd bet money that she's gray. Looking at that right now.
Yeah. So yeah, so we bred Sarin, doing the AI, and we bred her. She got the gray straws. So this year she could either have a solid black or a gray cat mugget lamb. We'll see what happens. She's a good mom.
Lucretia, she was a really nice lamb too.
Yeah. She's out of Alera and Jon Snow.
Yeah, so she's obviously a candidate for AI, and we chose her because obviously we picked her mother, so why not her? She's really
look at her.
very nice conformation, a little bit on the larger side compared to Ophavia,
Definitely. She was a single.
but just kind of you just want to have more of her, I guess.
Yeah.
More like her.
She's got a nice long torso. Her fleece is enormous. She had a really good yield as well. I brewed her. Yeah, 63%. That's like one of the best yields of everybody. And she gave us a white ewe that we still have in the flock this year. There she is. So her mom's got the pink nose and she's got the black nose. There she is as a yearling, you can see.
Nice long body.
So nice. That's the rude fleece. It's enormous and so nice and crimpy. I can't find a flaw with this ewe. I really love Lucretia.
Her lamb has eyeshadow,
Yeah. She's so pretty.
just like her grandmother, right?
Yep. I love her. Nice staple length as well on Lucretia.
Yeah. 21.1 spinning fineness on that fleece.
So yeah, you can see how I had
That was
brewed
her
her.
2-year-old second fleece.
You brew those white ones, you really got to kind of keep them inside until they get a little more wool on them, or put a coat back on them because they get little sunburns. So that's the 8 ewes. Really excited, and the calculations, we should start having lambs April 21st. They were all bred at the same time, so we're going to have a lot of lambs all at once. She's got the nice long body too on her. So stay tuned. We'll be back and.
Now, it would have been nice this year to use the new barn. We put the addition on the barn. And it would be nice to use that for this and kind of create a little nursery in there. But we got to get the floor in there.
Yeah.
So we got work to do, and it's just not quite ready yet. And I don't know how to get the stone in here to get it done between now and April 21st when the ground's really soft and wet. I think if we get the stone, I can get it in there and finish it. But right now it's half finished. You couldn't use it for anything right now. I'm wiring the barn right now, so hopefully that'll be, well, not hopefully, that will be done.
Yeah.
So that won't be an issue, but the stone and the floor is a problem. So that's that.
That's that. So those are the 8 ewes, and hopefully you get a better understanding now why we selected them, how they fit the criteria, but then also exceeded our expectations in terms of breeding quality. So stay tuned, and thanks for hanging on here to the end. Hope you liked the video, and I hope you can come back soon.
Thank you for watching this video. For more information on the topics discussed in this video, click on the description below to be taken to links for other videos on the channel. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking, commenting, or even sharing it to your social media feeds. And to get immediate notifications when new videos are uploaded to our channel, hit the down arrow on the subscribe button and click on the solid colored black bell. Thank you again for watching and for supporting our farm.